All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. New record day. My name is Ron. I'm glad to have you on board here with us. Today is Unifi's, Uni-fi 2.0s. If you haven't watched my review of both the bookies and the towers, links will be down below. But I never had the chance to do sound clips with commentary, so that is the plan here today. There's a couple of things that we need to cover before we get started. Yes, these are pulled out into the room. No, you don't have to get great sound out of these speakers. These were designed as such that you certainly can get closer proximity to the wall, and I often listen to them closer to the wall. The reason why they are out in the room is there's a balancing act of what I'm listening to, what the mics are hearing. It takes a long time to get things sounding pretty darn good through the mics, and that's why they are positioned where they are. Now, with that being said, there's a couple of other things that I want to talk about. Often with concentric drivers, speakers that have waveguides, horns, I do recommend crossing the streams. That's where they're going to be at an aggressive tone. And in the event where you get these speakers, I do want you to try that. I did another video tutorial, if you will, showing you step by step how to do that. I will also leave that link down below. Again, this is a balancing act of trying to get them to sound as good as I can for you guys. In terms of gear that you guys are going to be listening to today, we're switching things up. I totally recognize that in the event where you're getting the Uni-fi 2.0s, you might not rush out and get the Maydac, which is $5,000. We recently reviewed it. I get that. I understand it. So we are using a, crud, I already forgot the name of it. A Loxj, L-O-X-J, hold on a second. Okay. It is a Loxj D50, L-O-X-J-I-E. It was sent in for review. I'll leave links down below. It is a high-resolution DAC that also functions as a preamp. So you can run it either in fixed gain, or you can change it to where you can use it as a preamp and use a dial on the front for the volume. I decided to use it that way because I thought, well, if somebody's on a budget and they don't want to invest in a separate preamp, they just want to use the DAC as a preamp, then let's see how that sounds. And that is in turn running into a Purify Class D amplifier. I'll leave links down to the Purify amp. And if you're not familiar with Purify, not cheap, not crazy expensive, certainly not cheap, but the point being it is Class D. And I would imagine that many of you guys might put these speakers on a Class D amplifier. You're trying to save some money, and there's a lot of Class D amps out there that sound great, that won't break the bank, and I'm getting long-winded. Let's fire this up and see how these babies sound. So a couple of things. The subs, the subs are not on, and pulled out in the room where they don't have the front wall to help with boundary reinforcement, you're not going to hear as much reinforced bass as you can get by placing these closer to the wall. With that being the case, for a relatively small, thin little bookie like these guys, I'm always surprised. I'm always surprised at the bass that you are able to get out of such a small little speaker. And is that, for me, the thing that I love the most about the Uni-fi 2.0s? No, it's not. I think that would be something that most people can get by. You may end up needing to get subs if you decide to get the bookies. Same thing I would say with the towers, is if you wanted to get real bombs dropping, then you're going to need subs. What I love so much about the 2.0s, which I talked about and expressed in the review, is the level of detail retrieval that you get out of these speakers and the clarity that you can get out of these speakers without anything being hyped, meaning we don't see a rise in the top end response that's ridiculous, and they're certainly not trying to win you over with that first 5 minutes of bumped up bass and bumped up treble, the V-shaped type garbage that we see all too often with cheap speakers. That's not what's happening here. What is happening is precision and clarity, and yet I would describe this as a very balanced and very neutral sounding loudspeaker. So that is a huge celebration. Let's continue. One of the things that I appreciated about Randy's review of these, he described ultimately my biggest celebration of these speakers in his review, which is there is a sense of scale that you can get out of these speakers that is pretty astonishing. And that is to say, they can just light up a relatively big room without much trouble at all. And when you hear it, I think it's just something that is, it's confounding. This is like where we see some magic stuffed in these speakers, where it's like, wow, I've put a lot of bookies out here and they don't have that same scale and the ability to play much bigger than what they really are. And that is a huge, huge celebration of these loudspeakers. So, in the event where you do happen to have a larger space and you're wondering, are these going to be able to fill that space? I think the answer is yes. I think that they absolutely can. In the event where we're comparing these to the floor standers, obviously with the floor standers, they are voiced identical, they measure identical. You're just going to have more bass output. And so in a bigger room, physics will eventually show up and give you the finger, and in that case, get the towers and you're good to go. one of the things that I talked about when I review these speakers is there are some tracks where you can just draw lines around everything, like laser-like lines around everything in the stage, and that track is a perfect example of what I was just talking about. Everything is just so easy to track and you don't lose it. There is no smearing, there is no bleeding from one thing to the next. You know clearly where everything is placed in the mix, and I love that about these speakers. When I reviewed the Mayflies and we got to this track, I said they can rock out. And yet, at the same time, what I also said is there is stuff in this track that is going to be higher, right, than the fundamental hit of a cymbal. Go listen to this track on the Mayflies, come back and listen to it with these, and you will know exactly what I'm talking about. Because for me, it is clear as day. I feel as if somebody just removed a blanket, you know, from the speakers, and now we have everything opened up. We have air, we have extension, we have stuff dancing in the time domain. So do yourself a favor, go back, listen to the Mayfly clip, this exact same song, come back and listen to this one, and I think you will clearly hear exactly what I was talking about.
As every ocean come as rain, I know my circles, I know my name. Another sequel is on the way. Oh, oh, my love, reform and rise to be so free. In time we seize infinity. Growing love.
Concentric drivers. One of the things that I talked about in the review, and this perfectly illustrates it, is vocals. Step up to the mic and you feel as if you can just reach out and just touch it. It is so realistic, it is holographic, it is detailed, there's perfect precision and clarity in the vocals, and it also has life, it has dimension, it has the distance of where she is singing to the back of her head. It's almost as if you just know, yeah, I can render her in my mind as she is singing. It becomes a believable performance. original UB5s were a little more mid-range forward than the UB52s, and perhaps I think one of the things that we hear is that sense of scale that we talked about. I think that is the direct result of that change in the voicing. Is you drop down the mid-range just a little bit, and then all of a sudden it seems as if the speaker has a bit more scale. I think that's exactly what Andrew was doing in the voicing of these. With that being the case, there is no free lunch. Everything you do when it comes to voicing the speaker will come with a consequence at a particular, point in the frequency band. And one could make the argument that when we get into electric guitars, things like that, that dance in that upper mid-range area, mid-range and upper mid-range area, that you might walk away saying, I prefer the sound of the original UB5s. They're a little bit more mid-range forward, and I'm getting a little bit more snap out of those electric guitars. And I would go as far as to say this will be one of the key differences that one would find when comparing the UB52s to the XLS Encores from GR Research, because of all of the things that I appreciate about Danny's voicings, it seems to me like he always nails electric guitars. And that is, if I want to rock out to electric guitars, I grab the XLS Encores. I do. Because I think it's something that they do extremely well. So, keep that in mind. It's minor, but it is worth mentioning in terms of voicing. That hit near the end where you hear that beautiful decay being rendered, we're dancing in the time domain. We are dancing in the realm of what happens after the fundamental hit. Are you able to clearly hear it? Is it expressive? And is it easy to track all of those subtleties in the music? And with these guys, yes. I would love, and I'm certainly going to put the Maydac back on these and listen to these for the rest of the day and see if I can hear some of the big differences between this DAC that we're listening to compared to the Maydac. I expect that I will hear some big differences, but that little Lox G is not terribly expensive. And well, you guys tell me, what are you hearing? This sounds pretty dang good. Get that little Lox G on some Class D power. You might be a happy camper with this little modest system.
I wanna go out.
I'll start it again in a second. Pay attention to the sound of that acoustic, because it is spot on. It is exactly how I want to hear this acoustic being rendered in this particular recording. It's got some body to where you can hear the resonance of the guitar kind of wake up as he's playing. You hear the detail in the strings. It's money. It's perfect. All right, starting again.
I wanna go out and face the cold, but it's a really good time for a monologue. Can't let this pass, I find it hard to breathe. Time is up, the bell has rang, and it is really hard to understand. But losing you now is the only choice for me. But someday our roads will cross before
I just want to keep listening to that track. It just sounds great. I mean, again, we go back to her vocals being precise, clear. You have that holographic image that's happening in the soundstage, and then you have everything just breathing in the room the way that it should be, and nothing sounds dull, nothing sounds smeary, nothing sounds bloated or heavy. It just sounds right.
Remember sunsets in Boston, kissing yellow concrete. We watched all of them together until we couldn't go to sleep. Wish it lasted forever, but it faded away. I was wrong, you were right. We couldn't stand tall under the fire. Somewhere I can see the silver lining, but it's so far away.
You know, that precision and clarity in the vocals, it's not unique to female vocals. You get the same thing with male vocals. And so, yeah, also a sense of scale. When that whistling starts, it just wraps around you. It just wakes up it lights up the entire room, and the music that follows sounds open, it sounds free, it doesn't sound like it's stuffed inside a little box. So, sense of scale, huge celebration with these speakers, absolutely. When I had the mayflies up and I freaked out about the sound of the sax here, this sounds better than that. And the reason why it sounds better than that is not only does it share that same tone, I would say the mayflies are giving you a little bit more body, a little bit more bloom in the sax, but it is so holographic that he's playing. Like, you are just going, there's a sax player right there. You know it. It's so defined. It is so crystal clear. What can I say? As I finished up my review with the Unifis, I made the claim that I think that this is Mr. Jones just hitting his stride, and he's just running. And I feel the same way to this very day. You know, this is one of those loudspeakers that is so easy to celebrate, and it's such a crazy good value, you know. There's going to be some folks out there that say you have to power these with the sun to wake them up. That is not true. It's not been my experience. You don't need to go crazy in terms of power to get these things to wake up. Don't look at just sensitivity. You have to take a look at what the impedance is showing you as well. These are rated at 6 ohms, as we mentioned in the review. And yes, that does matter. It matters a lot. So, it's at their asking price, I would consider these a perfect loudspeaker. And I have never in the history of New Record Day ever said anything that bold. At their asking price, I think they are perfect. I just couldn't walk away saying, but I can't, because they're going to give you so much joy when you listen to these that it's just an easy recommendation. It really is. So, Uni-Fi 2.0's UB52s or UB52s as well as the UF52s. Those are the tower version of the same speakers. They're both fantastic. They are both voiced the same. The difference, as I mentioned before, is with the UF52s, floor standards, you're going to get more bass output. They are voiced identical. So, yeah, that's that. Easy. My job is easy with Andrew Jones, because the guy knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. And these sound great. All right, we'll see you guys in the next video.